How are yous? This all feels a bit strange, but then I suppose things are a bit strange at the minute. Um, if you can't hear me, then I really don't know what I'm going to do because I don't really know what I'm doing right now. But hopefully you can. Is an excerpt from a novel I've been working on for quite a long while, which is the story of a photographer from London called Ziggy, who arrives in Belfast in 1970, July 1970, as the falls curfew is being declared. And unfortunately, things don't go too well for Ziggy. So this excerpt is from pretty early on in the novel, and it is aimed at setting some type of scenery. So hopefully you get it, or I have allowed you to get it. So it's time to tell them how this will end, which will not be well for those who refuse to listen. What is essential is that it does end, and that it does so on the correct terms, which it will. No other outcome can be countenanced now that it has begun. What must be said, what the natives and half-breed turncoat settlers must follow to the letter, the soldier holds in one hand, in the other is a loudhailer. Below lies the city, or at least that part of it which must be pacified due to its working itself into a frenzy from which no good can come if it is not checked. In the distance lies the river, and beyond it the Castlereagh Hills. The interrogation centre, where the questions are put to the particularly suspect, to the really potentially dangerous ones, is nestled snugly in their shadow. Somewhat closer, but still beyond the river on the left, are the twin yellow David and Goliath cranes, although it is hard to tell which one is bigger than the other, looking obsolete and foreign from here. To the right, and much closer to the ghetto, the hulk of the hospital sprawls out up one road towards the countryside, and down another towards the centre. Named for Alexandrina Victoria, late of the House of Hanover, its subterranean corridors and disinfected wards wait silently for those who choose not to listen, and for those who do listen but disregard. And the soldier remembers the endless corridors with the semicircled ceilings and the swing-back plastic doors that were always heavier than they seemed at first sight. There was always somewhere a tuck shop open, selling cinnamon lozenges, big glass bottles of fizzy juice, and cigarettes. To the left, after who knows how many swing-back doors and just past the prayer room, was the courtyard and the night. In the middle sits Alexandrina Victoria, late of the House of Hanover, looking suitably stern, while grandmothers, drinking polystyrene cups of coffee, stubbed silk cuts and embassy regals out on her exposed toes. They were bringing a body into St. Paul's as dusk fell. Two professional pallbearers in black with white stripes and tight jaws lowered the coffin onto their fold-up trolley to take the deceased into the house of quiet and candles. There's no one around to mourn. All are fixated on what is going to come next. Behind are the linen mills and the flax mills, the mills for flour and the ones for tobacco, the mills for weaving and the mills for roping, the mills for beetling and the ones for spinning, the bleaching mills and the sewing mills, those for creaming and those for threshing, ones for dyeing and others for dyeing in. Some are now gutted and flooded, others are occupied by an army. Around them lie streets of rubble and scorched rafters and roofing beams brought low. Broken sofas with their springs exposed and smashed pictures of God now enclosed in reams of barbed wire that arrived too late to make a difference. Directly below, amid the smouldering tumult, hand grenades, 303 rifles, 202 versions, shotguns, Thompson submachine guns, blast bombs, nail bombs, gelignite, Webley revolvers, Colt pistols and Mills bombs, and a solitary temperamental Schneider submachine gun are moving hurriedly to and fro, from one hiding place to another, supposedly harder to uncover in a cranny, or into the hands of men who know how to use them, and teenagers who are learning on the job the logistics of killing a man. Long black barrels wrapped in white blankets are being hastily buried beneath coal and backyard bunkers. Floorboards in bedrooms are being prized up with claw hammers to allow revolvers to squeeze below. Others are stuffed into the back of pigeon sheds and among the piles of shit, much to the annoyance of their inhabitants who flail their wings against the flimsy wooden walls and hit their heads against the ceiling in gestures of non-compliance with this shameless subversion. Wraps of explosives which weep when not taken proper care of are dressed up as pasties on the scullery shelf beside George's milk and small plates of butter. Treasonous documents are being burned beyond recognition in living room grates on a balmy summer's afternoon. Still other black barrels are being oiled, magazines loaded, firing mechanisms checked and checked again. Fuses are being cut according to rough estimates of how far they need to be thrown and how much distance needs to be run in the opposite direction. And corrugated paper is wrapped tight around other whacks of jelly before the nails and screws are applied to do the dirty work of shrapnel. Milk bottles are filled with petrol, acid, and paint, the ones doing the pouring and holding being extra careful not to spill, shake, or drop, lest their mothers spot or smell the telltale signs when home time comes. Out on the main road, young men from Birmingham and Glasgow are fixing gas masks to their faces below steel helmets, clipping CS gas grenades to the pockets of their combat jackets, and beating wooden cudgels off plastic shields to shake the tension out of themselves and hurry it along into the bounds of the no-go zone, where enough nerves to send an army doolally already bounces along terraced houses and off gable walls. Slung over the shoulders of the soldiers are the latest self-loading rifles, ready to do their latest splurge of resolution. Outside the library waits their piece de resistance, a catapult so large it would be feasible to fire a medium-sized child from, hanging limp off the back of a Saracen armoured jeep, ready to hurl gas grenades over the roofs of the terraces and on the resistors, subversives, fellow travellers and curfew breakers. Below David and Goliath, a ferry docks to disgorge 400 fresh faces from Liverpool, complete with identical green kit to their comrades with a catapult, but less easy as yet in the worrying of it. As he gazes at the scene unfolding below, the man with the orders feels as Hieronymus Bosch may have done when he surveyed one of his half-finished paintings, awaiting the dreadful conclusion that must be filled in, and yet shuddering at the thought that it was him that was to do the filling. At the top of Prince Albert Street, named by the city burghers in honour of the late Victoria's late husband, there is a priest in the middle of a mob of teenagers, one moment pleading with, the next admonishing his stray flock. But the semi-anonymity pervaded by the rags of old shirts and thin scarves, the flock of tied around their mouths, has given them a greater sense of swagger. One is even spotted wearing a pair of his elder sister's laddered black tights over his head without any apparent sense of shame. Of course, the good father still knows exactly who it is he is trying to coax and face down before it is too late. Devine from Durham Street, whose mother gets down on her knees to scrub the stone floor of the chapel on Saturdays before morning mass. McCabe of Balaclava Street, whose father helps carry the confraternity banner along the falls every feast day of Mary, the Mother of God's Assumption into heaven. Hughes from out of the new flat complex, whose mother was lost to the drink, and whose sister steals, borrows, and begs to make sure his brothers and he are kept fed and immaculate for school. Hayes from Raglan Street, who was until a year ago one of the stalwart altar boys in the parish. St Jude's Parish, the rock upon which so much was built, including its parishioners' precarious foothold in the city, the preeminent church of Il Papa Paulus Sextus's Diocese of Down and Connor, the episcopal pride of the Roman Catholic Bishop Lawrence Thompson, home to St Jude's Schola Cantorum, situated in a slum surrounded by damp. Twin-spired, fashioned from the finest Scrabo sandstone, or neatly decorated with a brightly painted interior, it is warm and cosy in the midst of persistent chest coughs and consistent hunger, cool and spacious while rot works its way through bits and pieces of old bedroom furniture and broken staircases into the people of God's pores and quirks. The noise complements the anticipation in driving some spur. The whirring of the helicopter rotor blades creates a blanket to cushion the raucous sounds rising from this hard part of the earth and prevent them spreading and affecting others. Instead, they bounce back to ground level, aggravating their impact. The soldiers scrape their batons off the cement between red brick and the mesh wire of shop shutters as they inch ever closer to the no-go zone. As they do so, the scraping is intermittently broken by the smashing of a milk bottle on the road in front of them, or the sharp crack of rifles bullet leaving a bedroom window. Mothers are heard calling frantically from front doors. Footsteps increase in pace on all sides, breaking into canters. There is even the hint of a giggle here and there. And then, above it all, in tinny received pronunciation accent, things are made painstakingly clear. The story is plain, its trajectory determined, the meaning of it simple, the conclusion a battle to reach. The streets must be left unimpeded, the authority for the indefinite future. The summation, read out via loudhailer beneath worrying and above smashing battles, is this: in the interests of the preservation of life, the protection of property, in order to allow the elected to carry out their duties to the full extent required, unimpeded by violence, General Sir Gordon Percival, commander of land forces, places the area bounded by the Grosvenor Road in the west, the Falls Road in the north, Cullingtree Road in the south, and Divis Street to the east under indefinite curfew. All residents must remain indoors until further notice. The curfew will commence in 11 minutes, starting from now. Anyone found breaking said curfew is subject to arrest without warning. Thank you and good night. And nobody seems to have learnt the lesson that one should tread softly in heavy places. That's me done, thank God. So hopefully that was in some way decipherable. Thanks very much. Night.